Alrighty, welcome back everybody to our latest severe weather live stream. In today's live stream, we're gonna be doing a full detailed breakdown on what you can expect going into tomorrow, and as well as on Tuesday across the Great Plains, the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and the Southeast, as we have a multi-day severe weather event ahead across much of the United States. It actually has already begun tonight. We actually have an isolated discrete supercell right now in central Illinois that is moving southeast. I'll be breaking that down for you as well here in just a moment. In addition to this, we have our two big severe weather days ahead. First one's tomorrow. This is what's displayed right now for tomorrow. We have an enhanced risk of severe weather, mainly for the concern of damaging winds and large hail, but a few tornadoes will also be possible. We'll be doing a full detailed breakdown on what you can expect tomorrow. In addition to that, we'll be talking about what we can expect going into Tuesday, which is tossing trampolines on Tacos Tuesday, across areas like the Ohio Valley and as well as the Southeast United States, as there will be another day of severe weather. In addition to this, I have not really talked about this much recently, but we also have a large winter storm that'll be impacting areas like the Northeast as we go into Wednesday and Thursday. In addition to that, that winter storm will impact areas in the eastern Midwest like northern Illinois and as well as parts of Wisconsin as we go into late Tuesday evening into Wednesday. So another interesting little event that'll be happening there. We had a video forecast a few hours ago that breaks down pretty much all that stuff as well, but we'll be going in more depth here, giving you an idea of where that greatest tornado risk will be, where the greatest wind threat will be. All that sort of stuff will be broken down here in this live stream. In addition to that, I will be answering your questions, so if you have questions, feel free to leave those in the chat. I'll be trying to answer as many as possible in this live stream, but obviously with that being said, we already have 1,500 people in here, which is just crazy to say that, but I just want to kind of throw that out there. We will have questions answered, but obviously there's one of me, there's over 1,700 now of you guys in this live stream, so we'll be answering as many questions as humanly possible from one person in this live stream. Most of this live stream will be answering your questions, but I'm going to go ahead and give you at least a brief rundown of what to expect over the next few days, and then we'll go a bit more in depth. One thing I did want to point out right off the bat is that we do have a severe storm that is ongoing near Decatur, Illinois. This is producing golf ball sized hail and 60-mile-per-hour winds. At one point, this was actually rotating. It actually had a chance to produce a tornado north of Springfield approximately 45 minutes ago, but overall, it's not really rotating anymore. We do have an outflow boundary, which is pretty much dominating the storm, meaning that we're not really going to have much of a tornado risk anymore. Outflow-driven storm usually means that it's mainly going to be damaging winds and large hail. With that being said, this will continue for the next few hours. It's really just one storm right now, and that'll be moving towards Charleston and eventually going towards the Terre Haute area. So just keep that in mind if you're back over in southeast Illinois or western Indiana. All right, let's talk more about tomorrow's severe weather risk a bit more in detail. So right now, the Storm Prediction Center has an enhanced risk of severe weather. This includes areas from Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and Fayetteville back into St. Louis, Jefferson City, and Springfield. So a pretty large area overall for an enhanced risk of severe weather. Main concerns tomorrow will be damaging winds, large hail, and as well as a few tornadoes. And I'll show you where I think the greatest tornado risk will be here in just a moment. But I do want to show you that this area is very large in nature. It goes all the way from the East Coast, which includes Virginia, all the way back over into Texas and Oklahoma. So it's a very large risk for tomorrow overall. But the main concern for tomorrow depends on where you are substantially, because we're going to have different modes of severe weather in every location. The biggest concern across the western side of this risk, which includes Oklahoma, North Texas, and as well as Missouri and Kansas, and even northwest parts of Arkansas, is large to very large hail. Notice we have a hatched area. What this means is that we have a chance for significant hail, and I would not rule out a storm or two tomorrow producing upwards of 3 to 3.5 inch diameter hail, but the vast majority of storms that do produce hail will probably be between about quarter-sized hail up to about 2 to 3 inch diameter hail. So that's kind of the range for tomorrow, but the majority of storms will be under 2 inch diameter. There will be some storms, though, that push it, especially the initial supercells that develop tomorrow afternoon and evening that produce hail as large as 3 inches in diameter. So make sure that you are protecting your vehicle tonight, because there will definitely be that concern for some significant hail across those areas. All right, let's go into the wind concern for tomorrow as well. Flying trampolines will be possible. I know it's not tossing trampolines on Tacos Tuesday tomorrow, but there will be some flying trampolines tomorrow with the damaging wind threat that we have. The Storm Prediction Center has an enhanced risk of damaging winds across areas like Tulsa, Fayetteville, and Springfield back into southern Illinois and southwest Indiana. The main concern here in this region, again, will be damaging winds, and this area overlaps a little bit more with that hail threat as well. So really, I think the main concern when it comes to severe weather will really be focused across areas in northeast Oklahoma and southwest Missouri. I think that's where we're going to have really the greatest risk of severe weather, with damaging winds, large hail, and perhaps even a couple of tornadoes happening in that particular region there. But across this entire area, damaging winds up to 70 miles per hour will be possible tomorrow. Now, the tornado risk is a little bit different. The tornado risk, as of now, has been downgraded to a 5% probability across much of the southern plains and as well as the lower Midwest. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if we do get a small upgrade to maybe a 10% region. I'm not saying we're going to see a 10% hatched area tomorrow, but I wouldn't rule out that maybe some area, perhaps back over in eastern Oklahoma or even in southwest parts of Missouri, goes into a 10% tornado risk tomorrow if confidence increases on discrete supercells developing and essentially being separated from other storms. One of the problems that we currently have with the severe weather setup is that the storms are currently forecasted to be pretty close together to each other, and what that basically means is that there won't be much separation between the storms, and usually when that happens, we don't really get super significant tornado threats going or really significant hail, because it's really more of a semi-discrete setup or it's a linear setup. So for tomorrow, I think if we do get some more of those discrete supercells, there will be an increased risk here for tornadoes across areas like southwest Missouri and as well as northeastern parts of Oklahoma. But with that being said, we could still see tornadoes anywhere even without that happening. There will be a chance for a few tornadoes anywhere from Ohio and West Virginia all the way back through Kentucky, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, and as well as Illinois and Indiana. Might as well name off all the states that are included in the risk, but all those areas again do have a chance for a few tornadoes tomorrow. And then once we go into Tuesday, this threat of severe weather will shift further to the east. We actually have an enhanced risk of severe weather for southern Ohio, southeast Indiana, much of Kentucky, and as well as West Virginia. The main concern as we go into Tuesday will be, again, all modes of severe weather, but the main concern will be damaging winds. There will be some large hail out there, and there will be a few tornadoes. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up getting some sort of small 10% tornado risk as well going into Tuesday. With that being said, I don't think we'll see a hatch tornado risk, but that could always change between now and then. And what I mean by a hatch tornado risk is essentially meaning if we see strong tornadoes. So I don't think as of right now we're really looking at a strong tornado risk in this area on Tuesday. With that being said, a few tornadoes could still happen, and that can cause damage on its own. So definitely keep that in mind. All right, let's go to the timing, give you an idea of the timing with these storms, and I'll start answering questions. We'll go more in depth if there's specific questions, obviously. And again, if you have questions, we'll be answering those here in a few minutes. Let me find the computer models, and we'll go into the timing for tomorrow. And friendly reminder, by the way, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below. I do want to throw out that the 00Z HRR computer model run will be coming through in a few minutes. So that will have in a little bit. This is the 18Z model run. I don't expect any major differences, but we might see some differences. We'll see. This is the timing, though, for tonight. So notice all the let me take off the severe weather overlay here. Let me make sure. All right, so at the top of your screen, the timestamp is going to be in Central Time. So at the very top of your screen, that's in Central Time, right at the top of your screen. That's the timestamp that we're looking at on the future radar. So for tonight, showers and thunderstorms will continue across the Midwest. Overall, I'm not expecting much more severe weather tonight. Most of any severe weather that happens will be isolated quarter-sized hail. Tornado risk is near zero at this point for the rest of this evening. Tomorrow morning, not much happening. Most of the areas that are in the risk for severe weather will be dealing with some showers, perhaps even a few thunderstorms. And once we go into the early to mid-afternoon hours, that's when things get a little bit more interesting. First area that we need to watch for tomorrow afternoon will be across areas in the Midwest like Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. And this is where there's a little bit higher of a damaging wind threat and hail threat, perhaps even an isolated tornado. Once we get closer to 5 to 6 o'clock, more of those storms will be rumbling across southern Illinois and southern Indiana. Potential for an isolated tornado will exist over in areas like southern Illinois and southern Indiana. And then once we get closer to 8 to 9 o'clock in the evening, most of those storms will be ordinary across areas like Ohio, West Virginia, and Kentucky. And then we'll get another batch of storms behind this back over in southern and central Illinois and much of Missouri, where there will be a chance for more damaging winds, large hail, and as well as a few tornadoes still being possible. But the tornado risk will go down a bit more as we go into the late evening into the overnight hours. So I think the greatest tornado risk in this area will likely be in this area here, including Oklahoma, by the way, but I'll talk about that here in a second. But this will be the greatest tornado risk across the board when it comes to the lower Midwest and back in areas like Missouri. Overall, the main time frame for this tornado risk, the best chance for it, there could still be a tornado or two outside of this time frame. It'll most likely be between about 7 p.m. Central Time up until about 1 a.m. That'll be the main time frame to watch for that tornado risk. So unfortunately, a little bit more of a nocturnal severe weather threat here across areas in the Midwest and as well as back into the Ohio Valley. What's not going to be nearly as nocturnal, but will still be slightly nocturnal, because it'll be right around the evening sunset, would be areas in the southern plains and the central plains, and this is the timing for tomorrow. By 5 to 6 o'clock, storms will erupt quickly near the Red River Valley. These are mainly going to be large hail producers, but there will still be a chance for an isolated tornado or two. We'll also be watching another area back up in northeast Oklahoma and southeast Kansas for that threat as well. And as we go throughout the evening, more of these storms will fire up. We'll be talking about damaging winds, large hail, much more conditional risk across Texas. This may or may not happen. It's going to depend on if we have a cap in place, and a cap is essentially a temperature inversion that's in the atmosphere that prevents clouds from building up past a certain height. So that'll be in place for most of tomorrow, but if that's overcome, we will see this storm development. But if it's not, we will not be talking about much severe weather. Damaging winds and large hail are the main concerns all across Texas, maybe an isolated tornado risk out of a discrete cell or two, and then once we go into the late evening into the overnight hours, storms will continue to move to the east, and then the severe weather threat will dwindle for the morning Tuesday, and it'll ramp right back up as we go into Tuesday afternoon and evening across the Ohio Valley and as well as areas in the southeast, which I will be talking about in just a few minutes once the latest HRR model run comes through, because we cannot go past basically 1 o'clock on Tuesday. So that'll be out here in a few minutes, and we'll be going through that here in a few minutes. So again, we'll be answering your questions. Leave questions in the chat, and I'll be keeping you posted with the latest. I do want to quickly update you. This storm over in Illinois is intensifying quite a bit. We are now up to a tennis ball sized hail near Decatur. Let me get a radar sight on this real quick. Yeah, so this storm right here that's near Decatur, this is going towards Arthur, going into southeast parts of Illinois. It is now up to tennis ball sized hail, so a massive hailstorm currently in progress. You can see on the correlation coefficient that hail is actually being depicted there on radar. Areas like Charleston, Illinois, back over near the Houghton area, Interstate 70, west of Terre Haute, make sure that you are staying very weather aware there. Pretty intense supercell right now heading down to the southeast, and that very easily could produce the potential for up to tennis ball sized hail. Here's a better radar view. But yeah, pretty impressive supercell right now here in Illinois. All right. How's everybody doing? We have 5,000 people in here. Holy cow. All right, I have to slow down the chat a little bit. It's going too fast. If you do have questions, though, feel free to leave those in the chat. We'll be, again, answering a lot of questions about tomorrow's severe weather risk and Tuesdays. Again, I'm currently waiting on the HRR model run for Tuesday evening across areas in the Ohio Valley and as well as the Southeast. So that should be coming out here momentarily. Let's go back. We'll go back wide view. We'll go back to the storm if need be, but for now, it's, again, tennis ball sized hail right now falling just southeast of Decatur, Illinois. So if you know anybody in this area, make sure to give them a heads up there. That is definitely a pretty dangerous storm right now that's moving towards Charleston. And by the way, it's just one discrete supercell. We don't really have much else other than that. It's just that one supercell right now in eastern Illinois. And that'll be heading towards Interstate 70 and areas in southeast Illinois eventually. But that's it. That's the only storm that we have right now. It's been ongoing for probably about 5 hours now. It started in northeast Missouri, and it's about to be going towards areas in southwest Indiana, perhaps by around 9 or 10 o'clock or so. So pretty impressive storm there for sure. And that's something that we could see tomorrow, even in the Midwest. We very easily could see storms like that are producing large hail for a long duration, perhaps some long track supercells tomorrow, very possible. So we'll have to watch that pretty closely. All right. Thank you, Avery, for the $1.99 super chat. Do you think Louisville will be fair this week? What do you mean by fair? You'll be seeing at least some thunderstorms both tomorrow evening and as well as Tuesday. But overall, the threat of severe weather still on the low to medium side. It's not like a high risk by any means. It's definitely on the low to medium side. Hey, thanks, Brandon. Appreciate it. Hope everything's going well. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know why we have 6,000 viewers. I didn't expect that many, only 14 minutes in, but I appreciate everybody tuning in. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe, and we'll be answering questions about the severe weather potential for tomorrow and as well as Tuesday. And we have plans right now to go live both tomorrow and Tuesday for severe weather coverage. We'll be storm chasing with Connor Croft both days as well, so we'll be with them live tomorrow evening, probably maybe late afternoon, and we'll also be live on Tuesday for in-depth severe weather coverage. So we'll be live for both days. So again, make sure to subscribe to the channel, click the bell icon down below so you're notified if and when we do go live. In addition to this, by the way, I did mention that there's a winter storm in the Northeast and perhaps even the Midwest as we go into, primarily going into late Tuesday all the way through Thursday. I'm not going to talk about too much in this live stream unless we have specific questions. I talked about it a lot more in our forecast from today and the afternoon forecast, so. All right, I have to slow down the chat even more. But yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit if there's specific questions on it. Thank you, Chris, for the $4.99 super chat. How about St. Louis for tomorrow? The main concern for St. Louis will definitely be large hail. That is the main concern. Let me go back to the computer models here. But main concern will definitely be large hail. Even though there's a tornado risk, I don't think we're going to have the prime environment for really any sort of long track, strong tornadoes. I think there will be a few tornadoes tomorrow for sure, but I think overall that tornado risk will still be a little bit more on the low to medium side, even for those in your St. Louis. Here's a better look at your timing for tomorrow. Again, this is just an estimate. Very well could change as we get closer. Let's go closer to 1 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So notice there will be some convection during the early to mid-afternoon hours. A lot of these storms will be producing some large hail, damaging winds, perhaps an isolated tornado as well. I would really be watching all day, though, for severe weather. It's going to start as early as noontime near St. Louis, and it could run all the way through the evening. This could be a pretty long day across areas in the lower Midwest where there will be multiple rounds of storms. You can actually see the HRR model shows not just one, but not just two storms, but there will be probably at least 3 or 4 in this area all throughout the afternoon and evening. Notice the HRR model literally puts 4 different storms in your area in about 12 hours. With this being said, though, I would definitely be most cautious about the large hail threat. Perhaps upwards of, baseball-sized hail is not impossible, even though it's an isolated risk. I would be very mindful of that. Now, I think the lower Midwest, the lapse rates aren't nearly as steep as what they're going to be back in the southern plains, so that large hail threat could get close to tennis ball or baseball-sized hail if out of the initial storms, but I don't think it's going to be a super elongated threat. I think overall that large hail threat will last maybe 30 minutes to an hour with those initial supercells, and it will really diminish pretty quickly across areas in the Midwest, with still there being a potential for large hail, but maybe not very large hail, if you know what I mean. So I would still be very mindful of damaging winds and large hail. Again, make sure that you have a tornado action plan in place just in case you are under a tornado warning tomorrow, and that means multiple ways to receive alerts. You can have a YouTube live stream open, your phone, a weather radio, all those ways. Fantastic ways to do it. If you have a television with cable, watch a local news station. That's another way to also get alerts as well. And again, if you're just tuning in, the tornado risk has been downgraded. So this was from earlier today, but it was downgraded just after lunchtime today. We no longer have a 10% hatched area, but I still wouldn't be surprised if a 10% risk does get added back in, perhaps in northeast parts of Oklahoma, back into southwest Missouri. So that'll be the area to watch for, in my opinion, as we go into tomorrow afternoon and evening for the greatest tornado risk. But with that being said, tornadoes are still possible anywhere in this area. Thank you, New, by the way, for the $1.99. Thank you, Dirt, for a $5 super chat. Can you talk about Wednesday? In North Florida, another YouTuber worried me about it. North Florida on Wednesday, I'm not really that concerned about. I mean, you might get some damaging winds, but that's probably about it. I'm not really concerned about some sort of significant tornado outbreak by any means or anything like that. It's going to be a very low risk overall for tornadoes, but I do think damaging winds will definitely be a possibility. You might get a slight risk of severe weather on Wednesday down there. That would be primarily for North Florida. Also, thank you, Nancy, for the $1.99. Thank you, Chris, for the $4.99. How about St. Louis? I just answered that. Thank you for the $4.99. Thank you, Waco, for the $5 super chat. What kind of severe weather will Dallas see? So Dallas is an interesting area for tomorrow. Let me go to the computer models here. Take off the severe weather overlay. The HRR almost can make it on the latest run. It's almost there. So this is the timing for tomorrow. We'll jump to 2 o'clock. So this is 2 o'clock. Timestamp very top of your screen, by the way, for the future radar. It just went backwards. There you go. So this is 3 o'clock tomorrow. Eventually by 4 to 5 if it plays. There you go. So about 5 to 6 o'clock. What we're going to be watching for are supercells to develop right around the mid to late afternoon into the early evening hours. Most of these will develop north of Interstate 20, so North Texas, like north of DFW in particular. Those areas will be dealing with the brunt of the severe weather with large hail, damaging winds, and perhaps an isolated tornado being possible. With this being said, there's going to be a cap in place almost all day across North Texas, and what that means is that there's a temperature inversion in the atmosphere where there's going to be a certain point in the atmosphere, clouds will build up and they'll eventually be stopped by that temperature inversion. But once that temperature inversion is overcome, there will be some supercells that fire off across parts of North Texas, and it's a big if that still happens. I am leaning towards the cap will erode, especially near the Red River Valley during the late afternoon hours tomorrow. I would say further down to the south for areas like Dallas and back down near Waco, this is a bigger question mark overall in terms of whether the cap will actually erode or not. If it does, there will again be a more elevated chance there for severe weather like damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes, but that's still a big if. And even with that being said, I think the tornado risk does stay very low tomorrow across North Texas. It is not in the most favorable position for tornadoes, even if the cap is overcome, but an isolated tornado or two can't be ruled out. And the best chance for storms, by the way, between 5 and 11 p.m. This is 11, by the way, so this would be the last time for storms in North Texas tomorrow evening. Would be approximately 11 o'clock or so. So that would be the timing for tomorrow. They use Sly for the 199. Concern for North Alabama Tuesday. Main concern, large hail, maybe some isolated damaging winds. That's really all I'm looking at there. Thank you, Brett, for the very generous $10 super chat. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Toast, for the 199. How does Southwest Virginia look tomorrow and Tuesday? I'm not really concerned about tomorrow. Maybe an isolated storm, but not much. Tuesday, the main concern will be damaging winds. I think that overall the tornado risk should be very low there. Let's go back over to the outlook for Tuesday. Let me take off the computer model here. We'll just go back to here. So overall, the risk of severe weather in Virginia on Tuesday is still pretty low, but main concern would be damaging winds. Either way, maybe a brief tornado in very far western Virginia, like this little, I don't even know what you guys call it here in Virginia, but maybe like this little peninsula, for example, west of Roanoke, maybe an isolated tornado, but that would be about it. I think main concern, though, across Virginia will be damaging winds as we go into Tuesday, which is tossing trampolines on Tacos Tuesday. By the way, I want to throw this out there. We do have a high risk for flying trampolines tomorrow. Just a heads up. There is a high risk for flying trampolines. Here's the trampoline meter for tomorrow. And this high risk will be mostly maximized across Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. And going into Tuesday, right now it's a medium risk, but it'll probably go to a high risk. It'll probably be pretty similar to what we're talking about with today. Real quick update, new severe thunderstorm warning in Illinois. Just want to quickly go to this. Keep clicking on the hail icon there. New severe thunderstorm warning for tennis ball sized hail that is 2.5 inches in diameter. This includes areas like Arthur, Tuscola, Oakland, Charleston, and the Hutton area in southeast and eastern parts of Illinois. This storm is moving southeast. If you're in the Terre Haute area, be very alert about this storm this evening. I know we have a lot of viewers from that area. Make sure that you are watching the weather very closely. Main concern with this is going to be large hail. Upwards of tennis ball sized hail is possible. There is still a low tornado risk on this. It's not zero, but I would say it's a pretty low risk at this point. So just a quick update on that. That's again moving southeast, going to be going towards the Terre Haute area. So again, make sure that you're monitoring the weather very closely if you're near those areas. Again, it's one rogue supercell. We don't have any more than this. It's just this storm that's producing some crazy weather right now. Again, tennis ball sized hail being possible, in addition to damaging winds up to 60 miles per hour. And again, we'll continue to update you if anything changes on that particular storm as it continues to move more to the south and east. All right, I'm a little bit behind here. Thank you, TJ, for the $5 super chat. How about Wichita and Salina, Kansas? Main concern for Kansas, it'll primarily be south and east of Kansas City, actually. I'm not really expecting much for Wichita. Maybe an isolated hailstorm during the early afternoon if the cap, or really if any storms are able to actually develop that early there. But I think the risk overall for Wichita or Salina, very low to zero. Ordinary thunderstorms are really my only concern there for Wichita. Thank you, Turner, for the $5 super chat. What about Columbia, Ohio? Columbia, Ohio. I know where Columbus and Cincinnati are. Where is Columbia? I might have to look this up. I don't know where it is. Let me look it up real quick. I didn't think Columbia. Oh, it's up here. That's why. Columbia, Ohio, you're not really looking at severe weather, at least tomorrow. Tuesday, though, you might get some isolated damaging winds or hail, but I really think the risk is going to be really low up there. It's really close to the Great Lakes. And here's the day 3 outlook. You're not even in the marginal threat of severe weather. I think overall there's really no risk of severe weather there. Maybe some small hail or gusty winds if maybe one storm goes a little bit crazy or bonkers, but that would be really about it. By the way, the HRR model run is about to be going through tomorrow afternoon, so we'll have an update on that here shortly. See if there's any changes from the 18Z model run. What I'm seeing so far on this model, on the latest model run, let me take off the severe weather overlay again. It's kind of a little bit distracting here. So this is about 3 to 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Notice again, we have some rogue supercells trying to develop across Missouri right around 3 to 4 o'clock, maybe one near Kansas City. By 5 to 6 o'clock, it shows some pretty large hailstorms and perhaps even some isolated tornado, or at least some sort of isolated tornado risk in western Illinois around 6 to 7 o'clock tomorrow evening. And that's about as far as it goes right now. We're up to 6 p.m. Central Time tomorrow. That's the furthest that we have right now on the latest HRR model run. So. And for some reason, I cannot pause this. I'm trying to pause this on. There we go. So also another little thing is it does show those supercells that I was talking about before. Anywhere from about north central Texas back into southeast parts of Kansas, right around about 6 o'clock Central Time tomorrow. And again, these initial cells that'll develop around 6 o'clock tomorrow evening, and I hope this answers a lot of your questions, but this area in particular, the main concern around 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock, whenever they develop, it'll be during the late afternoon into the early evening. The main concern will be large hail. There will also be a chance for some damaging winds. We could get some hail upwards of baseball size in those storms, and perhaps an isolated tornado or two. I still think our maximized tornado risk will probably be in here if we get discrete supercells going. But I wouldn't also be surprised if we got a little bit more of an elevated tornado risk up in here somewhere as well near St. Louis. We did have a 10% tornado risk there before 12:30 today Central Time, before the latest Storm Prediction Center update. But I wouldn't be surprised if that got re-added for tomorrow. And obviously, as I mentioned before, we will be live tomorrow almost undoubtedly for the severe weather event. So make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. We'll be keeping you posted with the latest. All right. Thank you, Joel, for the $5 super chat. Tuesday, South Central Kentucky. Main concern, damaging winds, isolated large hail is possible, and maybe an isolated tornado, but I really can't show you the timing, at least on this computer model yet. I could show you the NAM3K model, but I have a lot of trust issues with this computer model. I do not like it very much. Let me show you what it at least looks like on here around that time. So this is about 7 o'clock. Notice we have that line of storms moving through areas like Ohio back into Kentucky. And by the way, we'll probably also be live on Tuesday evening. This is by around 8 to 9 o'clock. Storms will be moving through Lexington, Richmond, and as well as areas in south central Kentucky around that point. So the main time frame for you will be during the late afternoon into the evening hours. One of the big things, though, is that we could see an isolated discrete cell or two fire up ahead of that, and those could produce maybe a slightly more elevated tornado risk if that happens. That was something that was actually a possibility back last Monday when we had that tornado risk over in the lower Mississippi Valley, but that never materialized. So it's entirely possible that happens again where it just doesn't materialize. But the Mississippi Valley does some weird things in the springtime sometimes. Thank you, Jax, for the $9.99 super chat. What is the risk tomorrow for St. Louis? Main concern, large to perhaps even some very large hail out of the initial supercells that develop. I just showed this a second ago, but this is right around 3 o'clock or so. And again, this is just a computer model projection. It very easily could be different from what actually happens tomorrow, and it also could be in a completely different area. But we might get an isolated discrete supercell or two that fire up near the St. Louis area during the mid to late afternoon into the evening hours. The main concern with these would be large to potentially very large hail, maybe some damaging winds, and perhaps even an isolated tornado or two. That is the main concern. And as I mentioned before, my forecast at this point is that I would not be surprised with maybe a couple tornadoes in this area, perhaps in central or southern parts of Illinois, if these discrete supercells do materialize. But I still think the main concern with those will be large to very large hail. Thank you, Michelle, for the $10 super chat. What's the outlook for Lake County, Ohio? Thank you for putting the zip code. Makes it a little bit easier to type in on here. For Tuesday. So Wednesday, I'm not expecting a tornado risk. Tuesday, I wouldn't rule out an isolated hailstorm, but it would probably not even be severe. So I'm not concerned about Lake County at all. I'm not really concerned about that little quadrant there in northeast Ohio. Have multiple ways to receive alerts, but I'm not really concerned about that area. Just gonna be honest with you. So be weather aware, but I wouldn't expect anything too crazy. By the way, quick update on the severe... Oh, I have the severe thunderstorm warning thing still on. Just a quick update, though, on that severe thunderstorm warning back over in central parts of Illinois right now. The storm is continuing to move southeast. It's going to be approaching the Terre Haute area eventually. Might just dodge it to the south, but we'll see. This storm was initially producing tennis ball-sized hail. It has now been downgraded to golf ball-sized hail. So golf ball sized hail, 60-mile-per-hour damaging winds possible. That is going to be moving towards Interstate 70. It is just right now west of Terre Haute. So if you're in this area, just keep a close eye on that storm. Again, it's one rogue supercell that we have ongoing right now in Illinois. And other than that, we have no other severe weather in progress this evening. And I don't really expect much this evening. I think most of the severe weather will hold off till tomorrow afternoon. Still a low tornado risk, though. Let me just real quickly check the velocities on this. Perhaps have a little bit of contamination here because of the hail core, but keep a close eye on this. We have another radar site down here. We might have a better view of it. Yeah, not really any great view, maybe a little bit of rotation there, but it's pretty weak overall if we do have any. The storm primarily has been outflow driven, so I think any tornado risk will be fairly low tonight across those areas. All right, back to questions. What about Columbus, Ohio on Tuesday? Thank you, Turner, for the $5 super chat. I think I might have answered that already. No, Columbia I answered. Columbus, the main concern will be damaging winds, perhaps an isolated tornado risk. That's really about it, though, for Tuesday. And again, I will be going through the timing once we have the HRR model run. I'm going through that time frame. I think we're getting close. We're at 11 p.m. now, so we're getting pretty close. The HRR continues to show that the cap will erode in North Texas tomorrow evening, which would mean we would see a potential cluster or line of storms across Oklahoma and Texas. And that could produce damage. That will mainly produce damaging winds and large hail, especially out of the initial supercells. Large hail will be a concern. But yeah, that's the latest from the HRR model run, which... this again would mean that we don't have that cap would be eroded tomorrow, leading to thunderstorm development across Texas. But right now, I'm not super confident. At least for now on the latest run, I'll have to look at the tornado parameter values and all that. But I'm not super duper confident right now on a obviously a significant tornado risk at this point. I'm not really concerned about. I would expect a few tornadoes, but a strong tornado risk I think is going to be a bit of a stretch tomorrow. Let's check out the tornado parameter values here, just out of curiosity. I'm going to take off the severe weather overlay here for a second, just so I can see this a bit better. Timestamp again, top of your screen, very top of your screen. Let me go back to the other screen here. There you go. Very top of your screen. So this is tomorrow afternoon during the early afternoon. What we're looking for here, by the way, are values, or really I should say colors because you can't see the values, that are really green or something brighter. The gray colors indicate a very, very, very low tornado risk near the leading edge of where these storms develop. So notice during the afternoon tomorrow, perhaps an isolated tornado risk near the St. Louis area. This is around 6 to 7 o'clock. And perhaps an isolated tornado risk in western Missouri, perhaps along the leading edge of those storms in eastern Oklahoma, but yeah, I'm not really seeing any definitive areas here, at least on the significant tornado parameter of anything crazy. Let me check out the low-level jet here. I do think this environment is more of a damaging wind and hail threat, and I've thought that really the entire time, but potentially a slightly more elevated tornado risk where the greatest and strongest winds are in the low-level jet, which is primarily in northeast Oklahoma, back through central Illinois. It's really where that 5% tornado risk is, which here's that outline for you. Should be in this area. But yeah, I'm not seeing anything super definitive here that would lead me to believe we're gonna have a significant tornado risk tomorrow, but that obviously could always change with various factors. One other key thing about this too tomorrow is that this is actually going to be a positively tilted trough, and usually with positively tilted troughs we don't nearly get as much rotation with some of these storms. Negatively tilted troughs are just historic when it comes to producing severe weather events. I do think there's definitely a possibility in northeast parts of Missouri and western parts of Illinois that one or two of these discrete rogue supercells will produce very large hail and tornado threat. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking right now. I mean, overall, again, this will be during the late afternoon and early evening going into tomorrow. So this will be an area to watch for. I think this is really going to be an interesting area to watch. Just north of St. Louis, where I do think there's a slightly more elevated risk for large hail and damaging winds. So keep a close eye on that if you're in central western Illinois and northeast Missouri. We should have the full timing on the Ohio Valley and as well as the Dixie Alley for Tuesday severe weather threat probably in about 6 minutes or so. So we're just waiting on that right now. All right, I am missing a ton of questions. Again, there's one of me and 7,200 of you guys. Just keep in mind, I'm trying to answer as many questions as possible. But with that being said, there are a lot of questions, so I will try my best to answer as many as possible. And a friendly reminder, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below. It's free to do. It's the red button down below. Subscribe. We'll be keeping you posted with the latest with the severe weather event. I am planning on having severe weather coverage tomorrow. We'll be live storm chasing with Connor Croft, or not. I'm not going to be storm chasing with him, but we'll have storm chaser Connor Croft with him or with us on tomorrow's severe weather coverage, and as well as Tuesday. So both days will be most likely live both days for severe weather coverage here on the Max Velocity channel. So make sure that you are subscribed. All right, what about Chicago tomorrow? I'm not expecting severe weather in Chicago tomorrow. You'll have a lot of rain, but that's about it. If you didn't watch my video from earlier today, I also mentioned that you actually could see upwards of 3 to 6 inches of snow on Wednesday. Slightly conditional, though, on that. And if you want more details on that, there's some details in our forecast from 5 p.m. or so today. And thank you for the $2 super chat, Sam. Thank you, Rads, for the $5 super chat. What about Versailles, Missouri? I don't know where that is. Guessing that's near, apparently it's in France. I'm pretty sure that is near St. Louis, but I'm not 100% sure. Maybe I'm wrong. Nope, I'm completely wrong. Never mind. That's near Jefferson City. Main concern will be large hail, damaging winds possible, maybe an isolated tornado, but overall the main concern will be, I mean, you're gonna have multiple rounds of storms here. Undoubtedly tomorrow. Most of it will be during the late afternoon into the evening hours. You can see that here depicted on the HRR model run. Notice again a few rounds of storms moving through your area. I would expect mainly a damaging wind risk, though. If there's an initial supercell that develops here, there will be an elevated risk for large hail. That is not set in stone, though, by any means. It may or may not happen in your area. Good things you should do is protect your vehicle, take the proper precautions, make sure you hatch down your trampolines. Anybody that owns a trampoline in this chat, make sure you're hatching down your trampolines. I showed you this photo earlier, and I'm going to show you guys again. The flying trampoline meter is a legit thing. This is from trampolines that have gone flying from severe weather events before. This was on the Great Flying Trampoline Outbreak of 2023. This was last March, and these are actual photos from that event. Other than the one at the top left. This is a basis photo for no risk. But flying trampolines are a real thing, so make sure you're hatching down your trampolines. It is the state bird of Texas. Not really, but yeah. It is a legit thing during the springtime across much of the United States. So highly recommend that you hatch down your trampolines. You don't want to be that person that has your trampoline in somebody else's yard or perhaps in somebody else's window. I remember that live stream day of flying trampolines. I do too. That flying trampoline day will be with me forever. All right, back to questions. Thank you, Bradley, for the $5 super chat. How about Beech Grove, Indiana? Beech Grove, Indiana. I should know where this is because I watch this on OP Live, if anybody watches that show. This used to be an area. That's actually Indianapolis. Indianapolis, main concern anywhere in the Indianapolis area will be isolated damaging winds and isolated large hail for Monday. Tornado risk is also very low in this area. I am honestly not super concerned for significant severe weather, like significant large hail, significant damaging winds, anything like that. I'm not really concerned about that, but I would still expect at least an isolated risk there for some large hail or damaging winds. That main concern, there will be probably 2 rounds of storms. One will be during the early afternoon, perhaps. Here's the timing. Zoom out a little bit here. This is the timing right around 5 to 6 o'clock. So perhaps 1 round of storms. That should stabilize the environment a little bit, leading to more of an isolated risk of severe weather in the evening. That convection will really just kind of stabilize the atmosphere a lot. So the main concern would be probably after sunset with maybe some isolated large hail or damaging winds. With that would be about it there near Indianapolis. And then overnight, there will be a lot more rainfall from where that came from. Severe weather going to Tuesday should be a really low risk overall, though. I don't think you'll see much then. All right, we're through hour 33 on the HRR 00Z model run. We're almost to Tuesday. I do apologize for those that are waiting for Tuesday's timing across the Ohio Valley. I try to go live a little bit early, but it's a little bit delayed right now on the run. Thank you, Lisa, for the $5 super chat, by the way. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, G-Man, for the $4.99. What's the forecast for Jonesboro, Arkansas? Jonesboro, probably not going to get too crazy. Let me show you the future radar here on the HRR model run. This is what we're looking at going into tomorrow evening. So notice around 8 o'clock, we're going to be dealing with mostly a linear line of storms. A lot of these will be mainly damaging wind and hail producers. Maybe an embedded QLCS tornado in this line. That essentially means that there might be, again, it's just a fancy word for there being a possibility for an embedded tornado in this line of storms that will try to develop tomorrow evening. Going into the overnight hours, there will be some storms moving towards the Jonesboro area. But overall, the main concern, isolated damaging winds, and that's really about it. I'm not that concerned about eastern Arkansas tomorrow evening. Main concern, if you're anywhere in Arkansas, will be back up in here near Fayetteville, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and back into southwest parts of Missouri. That will be the main concern. Thank you, Waco, for the $5 super chat. What kind of weather will Lakeland, Florida see on Wednesday? Northern Florida in general, anywhere up there in northern Florida, the main concern again will be isolated damaging winds. I do think the Storm Prediction Center may issue a slight risk for that area, primarily for the damaging wind risk, but I think that's the main concern right now. But they have not issued a risk yet, but that'd be my guess, either a marginal or perhaps a low-end slight in that area. So some isolated to widely scattered severe weather basically being possible. That severe storm, by the way, up in eastern Illinois near Charleston. Just a quick update on this. We're doing occasional updates on this storm because it is a very impressive supercell right now. Has been going on for approximately 6 hours now. It started over in Missouri earlier this afternoon. It is still producing some significant hail. It produced tennis ball sized hail at one point. It's back down to golf ball sized hail. This will be moving towards the Terre Haute area. Marshall, Martinville, and Casey. This is again in eastern Illinois and near the Terre Haute area with the potential for some large to very large hail. Plenty of lightning as well, and perhaps an isolated tornado risk. So, just a quick update on that for those that are in that area. All right, let's zoom back out. And let me get back to questions here. If you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the chat. I'll be answering as many as humanly possible for one person versus 7,000 people that are watching. Again, this is one of our highest viewed live streams of all time, which is really shocking, one, because I didn't expect this many viewers at all. And two, this is also a forecast live stream. So very, very crazy. I do appreciate everybody tuning in, and I'm glad you guys have found my channel. Hopefully you are finding this content informative for tomorrow's severe weather event, and if you are, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Again, we will be likely live both Monday and Tuesday for severe weather coverage with Storm Chaser Connor Croft alongside with us, and those live streams will definitely be very active, is my presumption, especially across areas in the southern plains and back into the lower Midwest for sure. Thank you, Aaron, for the $5 super chat. I appreciate that. That's interesting. Thank you. Let's go to Faith. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Thank you, Zach, for the $1. Thank you, Avery, for the $4.99. You should make a flying trampoline calendar and donate the money to storm victims. That's not a bad idea. That actually is not a bad idea. I will definitely consider that. The only hard part about that is that all the flying trampoline photos would have to get licensed out for that, and that might be a bit of a painful process, but definitely something I will try to, at least, I'll definitely consider it. I'll see if I can make that happen. That's a really good idea, though. Thank you for the $4.99. Thank you, Derek, for the $9.99. What about Martinsville, Indiana for both days? I'll have to figure out where that is. And also, for those that are asking questions, something that'll help me a lot when it comes to questions, if you just ask a general area of a state, so like central Illinois or central Indiana or southern Indiana, like give me a region, that will make it way easier to answer more questions in this time frame that I'm live for. So just for those that have future questions, it makes it a lot easier to get through more questions because I don't have to look up places. Central Indiana, I just went over a few minutes ago. Main concern will be tomorrow evening, and that'll be mainly damaging winds. I don't expect too much significant severe weather in central Indiana. We might get an isolated supercell or two that don't go discrete, perhaps in like the southern side of either Illinois or in Indiana. Main concern would be damaging winds and large hail if there are any discrete supercells with perhaps an isolated tornado. But back up in areas like central Illinois, both states actually, central Illinois and southern Indiana, primarily in I'd say really just this area in general. Main concern will be damaging winds, and that's mainly because we're gonna have some storms during the early afternoon that'll likely stabilize the environment and kind of limit any sort of significant severe weather threat during the late afternoon into the evening. That is as long as the air mass does not recover super fast, and that's one of the things that happened with that severe weather event that we had back a few weeks ago when we had the Ohio tornado outbreak and all those tornadoes that happened. The air mass really quickly like came back. It basically, I mean, the atmosphere got really unstable again really fast, and that allowed for a bunch of tornadoes. I don't think we're gonna have that happen tomorrow, but that is obviously something that happened on that previous event. I don't think that'll happen this event, but just something to keep in mind. A little bit different with both events. The air mass recovered way quicker in that event. I don't think it'll recover nearly as well in this event. I think the main concern would be isolated damaging winds. Thank you, Lisa, for the $5 super chat. Any chance for storms coming to Polk County, Florida? I don't know where Polk County is. One moment. That is south of Orlando. So anywhere in central Florida, main concern is isolated damaging winds on Wednesday. I know a lot of people have been talking about in chat, like they're kind of scared about Wednesday's severe weather threat in Florida. I'm not sure where everybody's getting that from. I haven't really heard much about the severe weather threat on Wednesday in Florida, at least personally. But I think overall the main concern would be some isolated damaging winds. It'll probably just be a marginal threat though, maybe a small little slight risk, but it's mainly going to be damaging winds. And I'm reading through the Storm Prediction Center on Wednesday's discussion, and they're pretty much saying the same thing. I mean, there's really nothing crazy to expect on Wednesday. Again, I'm not sure where everybody's getting the Wednesday severe weather fiasco from for Florida. If anybody knows, type it in chat. I have no clue. I've seen a lot of people asking about Florida though, which kind of surprises me, because it's not going to be really that big of a deal anywhere in Florida. Thank you, D-Chap, for becoming a moderate Velocity member. I appreciate that. Welcome to the Velocities. Thank you. All right, let me go back to... Yeah, no reason to be scared if you're in Florida. Again, it's a very, 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 very low risk overall. We almost got timing for Ohio Valley, so just waiting on that. This is a pretty good view of tomorrow evening at about 7 o'clock. Again, multiple different modes of severe weather. We'll have some storms across central Illinois, elevated hail and damaging wind risk, perhaps an isolated tornado. This area in particular will be interesting to watch and see how that all evolves, but we might get some sort of elevated risk of severe weather there. But main concern will be damaging winds and large hail, especially in this area here. Doesn't go that far north. This area, though, in particular, would be the main area to watch for development between about 5 to 7 o'clock tomorrow evening Central Time. All right, I am really behind on questions here. Thank you, Joe, for the $2 super chat. What about Nashville on Tuesday? Anywhere in central Tennessee, the main concern will be damaging winds. Not ruling out an isolated tornado, but I think that tornado risk will really be maximized. Let me go back to the severe weather risk so I get a pretty exact area of what I'm talking about here. This area in particular, though, this is really where I think the greatest tornado risk will be. So southern Ohio, basically anywhere in this enhanced risk, that's where I think the greatest tornado risk will be on Tuesday. So primarily to your north. You might get an isolated tornado somewhere in Tennessee, but I think the risk of that is pretty low in Tennessee. Thank you, Kel, for the $4.99. Chances of hail in St. Louis County over the next day. I mean, if I give it a probability, it would be in a 25-mile radius of St. Louis. I would say probably a solid 40% chance. I know that there's not a moderate risk of large hail here, but I would honestly probably put it closer to the 30 to 40% mark. Maybe not in St. Louis, but anywhere like, let me kind of just draw a little area because this would be the radius that I'm talking about. Let me zoom out a little bit here. How much is even 25 miles here? Let's see. That actually might not be enough. So within 50 miles, probably about a 40% chance. Within 25 miles, so within the county lines basically, or maybe just kind of on the border there, probably closer to like a 20 to 25% chance. So that's what I'm thinking tomorrow in terms of hail. Now, that does not mean you're necessarily going to see 3-inch hail, for example. You might only see quarter-sized hail in maybe an isolated location, maybe a couple hailstones. So keep that in mind. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be talking about some really significant hail, even though that is a threat tomorrow and it is a possibility. It's not a guarantee that you're going to see hail, above 3 inches in diameter. It is a possibility, but again, not a guarantee. Have you ever, thank you, Izzy, for the $5 super chat. Have you ever thought about going state by state? Might be easier, especially with this many people. I would go state by state, but I pretty much already did that in my video today, and it would be a really big repeat of what I did in my video today. So I'm really going more in-depth, per se, for every area. Now, in a typical forecast live stream, I would usually do that, but since I literally uploaded a video 4 hours ago with region by region going through the timing and everything, it would just be easier to leave it to that. If I didn't do that, I probably would have just done that in this live stream, which is what I used to do. Thank you, Zachary, for the $4.99. About 30 minutes from St. Louis. What's it looking like for tomorrow night? I've answered St. Louis about 5 times, I think, now, but again, main concern anywhere in St. Louis and anywhere surrounding it, by the way, will be large hail and damaging winds. Definitely, the main concern is definitely going to be damaging winds because of the rounds of storms that'll be happening during the evening hours. Here's your timing right about 8, 9 o'clock or so. Notice we're gonna have storms to your west, and this would be the area to watch for damaging winds and large hail. I would say the main concern as these continue to evolve and move to the east and try to become more linear would be damaging winds near the St. Louis area. So this is like 9 to 10 o'clock. Main concern, again, being damaging winds with any of these storms. But with this being said, if we do end up getting this discrete supercell development during the mid to late afternoon hours, I wouldn't be surprised with a very large hail or even potentially a tornado risk really developing near the St. Louis area. And this is what I'm talking about. The HRR model picks out a couple of different storms near the St. Louis area that would be producing perhaps that isolated tornado risk, and maybe even some large to very large hail. This is definitely a possibility as we go into tomorrow. Again, it's not a guarantee, but that is definitely something that we'll need to watch for closely in parts of southern and central Illinois. Primarily south, though, Springfield would be that area to watch for. And this is 7 o'clock tomorrow evening. If we compare this to the temperatures, Notice the warm frontal boundary is basically going to be in that area. That's why it's a little bit more of an interesting area to watch for. A bit more of a dynamic setup. Usually near the warm front, we do get a little bit more shear, so that'll be something to watch for sure. Can you imagine? You'd be 80 degrees if you're near St. Louis at 3 o'clock tomorrow. If you're near Chicago, you are at a cloudy 40 degrees. That is a really big swing across the state. And another thing to look at too is the dew points tomorrow. They are definitely going to be up there. The values aren't plotted on here, but most of these dew points across the board in the mid to upper 50s and low 60s. This is tonight, and then this is tomorrow. Dew points will really rise into the low to mid 60s. A lot of buoyancy tomorrow. We actually will have dew points where that warm frontal boundary will be near as well, in the mid 60s. That's a lot of moisture to work with, and if that ends up happening and that verifies, we very well could have a little bit more of an elevated risk of severe weather just north of St. Louis. I wouldn't be surprised in the next Storm Prediction Center outlook if we do end up getting a small extension to that enhanced risk a little bit further to the north to perhaps cover that more conditional but possible discrete supercell formation near areas just north of St. Louis in this area. We'll see if they add that. Again, I don't know if they will. I'm not an insider to the Storm Prediction Center, but that might be something they consider. And even if they don't put it in the next outlook, they always could put it in the morning too if confidence grows. That you face for the 499, Dayton, Ohio for the rest of tonight through Tuesday evening. Most storms are going to be ordinary, even all the way through tomorrow evening. I wouldn't be surprised if they be an isolated damaging wind or hailstorm tomorrow evening, but it's a low threat overall. Tuesday, a little bit different. I do think there will be a bit more of an elevated damaging wind risk, so definitely take the proper precautions there. I think overall the tornado risk, though, going into Tuesday is still going to be on the low to medium side in areas near Columbus or even back over into Dayton. The HRR model is getting pretty close to being able to show all the afternoon on Tuesday, so we'll have that in a moment. It's up to hour 43 now. Right now it shows mostly during the morning some isolated supercells with perhaps damaging winds and large hail. I'm not seeing a whole lot of a tornado risk here. Let's check out the tornado parameter values for this day. So it looks like perhaps a bit more of a tornado risk back over in southern Illinois or southern Indiana during the early to mid-afternoon hours on Tuesday. We'll see what it shows as we go into the evening hours, but that'll probably get a little bit closer there to southern Indiana and southern Ohio. I still think the greatest tornado risk will probably be in this area here during the afternoon hours. That does not mean everybody's going to see tornadoes. Majority of you will not even see a tornado either day. Just keep that in mind, by the way. I'm not trying to panic you by any means. Again, most of you will not see tornadoes tomorrow. The majority of you also will not see large hail or damaging winds tomorrow, but you want to make sure you take the proper precautions because this risk is a bit more elevated than usual. We're on a 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale for that enhanced risk of severe weather both days. So you want to make sure that you are taking the proper precautions, have multiple ways to receive warnings. That includes like a weather radio, your phone, television, YouTube stream, whatever it might be. Make sure that you have multiple ways to receive alerts in case you are under some sort of warning tomorrow. And we are not at hour 45 yet, so we'll continue to wait for that. More than anything, this live stream, again, is just to prepare you on what is to come for the next few days anyway. All right, I am missing a lot of stuff here. Thank you, Missile, for the 499. Will you cover Nashville, Tennessee when it's available on radar? Yeah, I will. Yeah, once it's up here on the HRR model. And again, I would use the NAM 3K model, which already goes out this far. It's not nearly as accurate in a lot of cases. It really depends on the event, but it can be very hit or miss with future radars and stuff like that. It's definitely not nearly as good, in my opinion, when it comes to forecasting severe weather events, because in some cases it's way overestimating, or in some cases it just underestimates a ton out of some of these events. Quick update, by the way, the severe thunderstorm warning that is currently in eastern Illinois has been downgraded to quarter-sized hail and 60-mile-per-hour damaging winds. Thank you, Jennifer, for the $10 super chat. Thank you for being live and updating on the forecast. We're all kind of nervous about this one in Southwest Ohio. Cincinnati, Dayton area Tuesday. Are GFS and European going the way the NAM showed, or is the NAM settling down? That is a model breakdown that I am not really going to go into because and I mean, it's not irrelevant, but it'd just take a lot of time to go through 3 different computer models and compare all the stuff on them. With that being said, I mean, for Southwest Ohio, I still think the greatest threat will probably be during like the mid to late afternoon, early evening, and damaging winds is the main concern really across the entire Ohio Valley for Tuesday. Tornado risk will probably be a bit more elevated though in this orange shaded area, which would include parts of Southwest Ohio. Again, it's no reason to panic because again, the chances of you seeing a tornado are still really low comparatively to you know, seeing like damaging winds or something like that. It's still a relatively low chance of happening, but you want to make sure that you're prepared just in case something like that happens. Still not really too far into we're still not at the like mid to late afternoon hours on the HRRR, but once that comes in, I'll show you the tornado parameter values and go through it a bit more in detail once that happens. But seems like that severe weather risk will really try to maximize itself during the mid to late afternoon on Tuesday. Thank you, Waco, for the $5 super chat. How about Thackerville, Oklahoma? That is somewhere in southern Oklahoma, and I don't know where, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm trying to guess, and I'm not getting it right so far. I think no, I do know where that is. I do. It's back over near Gainesville. Main concern there will be damaging winds and large hail out of these initial supercells that develop tomorrow evening. The HRR model puts a pretty good picture on those around 6 o'clock. Notice the storms developing right around 6 o'clock. It's still contingent on the cap being overcome. I would say it's likely, though, that this will end up happening. We'll at least get 1 or 2 discrete cells that try to fire up here around 6. Main concern will be large to very large hail, some damaging winds, and perhaps an isolated tornado or 2 across Oklahoma and North Texas. But the cap is still going to be a possibility here, and which could limit the severe weather potential in North Texas. Further north you go, the less chance of the cap actually playing a factor into tomorrow's severe weather threats. Rail fan Caleb for the $10 super chat. Appreciate the generosity. 2 of my friends live in northern Georgia. Any threat for that area? Northern Georgia, main concern will be isolated large hail during the afternoon hours, perhaps into the early evening. This is what it looks like 4 o'clock on Tuesday. Notice some showers and thunderstorms out there across northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, and eventually going to be going towards Georgia. Probably won't impact those areas, though, until the late evening or mid to late evening. And with that being said, I would say the main concern in that area would be damaging winds. HRR is showing a lot of showers and thunderstorms, but a lot of this does not look very impressive on the futurecast. And I would say, really, if anything, this would be the area that you're looking at during around 6 o'clock, for example, on Tuesday, with some isolated damaging winds, perhaps some isolated large hail. And actually, you can see here now in the HRR, this is the latest few scans here. Shows a bit better of a picture there of maybe a couple of discrete cells trying to rotate, perhaps producing an isolated tornado risk during the mid to late afternoon on Tuesday. This is 4 to 5. Notice, again, a few storms trying to develop here. And these would be the ones that we're watching for, again, for maybe a bit more of an elevated tornado risk. But with that being said, this does also not look very impressive on the future radar. Check out the tornado parameter values. One of the other things they'll have to watch for during the late afternoon and evening on Tuesday here is going to be how much rain and storm activity we have before the main event happens, because that can really play a big factor into the overall environment and atmosphere. The HRR still showing a bit more of a greater tornado risk here in Southwest Ohio, North Central Kentucky. With that being said, we could see a few tornadoes. We might not see very many. It's going to depend, I think, a lot on the storm activity that we have during the daytime, because that could stabilize the atmosphere and reduce the tornado risk and also the severe weather risk in general. It also might not, depending on what we have in terms of a rebound of the atmosphere going into the late afternoon and evening. So that's what we're at least currently looking at on the tornado parameter values. And this is hour 48. I think it'll pop up. There's hour 48. So this is a bit better of a view, though, but around about 7 o'clock or so, storms will fire up anywhere from about Clarksville, Tennessee, back into Dayton, Ohio. And we'll be dealing with more of a line of storms, so damaging winds are definitely going to be the main concern, I think, undoubtedly for Tuesday. But we might get a couple of tornadoes embedded in that line, especially in the enhanced orange shaded region. So that'll be really what we're looking at going into the evening. That's the furthest out the HRR model goes now, so we're at the peak time it can go out. Thank you, Rob and Sumner, for becoming a minimum velocity member. I do appreciate that. Thank you. Welcome to the Velocities. And by the way, I am super behind on super chats, and I'm probably about 10 minutes behind on them, so I'm trying to get through them still. Thank you, Cowboy, for the $2 super chat. Northeast Kansas. Main concern, if you end up getting severe weather, will be the potential for some isolated large hail. That's really the main concern. Even with that being said, I think that threat stays relatively low. Quick update on that severe storm over in southeast parts of Illinois. It's been weakening quite a bit. It is still producing large hail and damaging winds, but the hail threat has gone down substantially. Still producing quarter-sized hail. If you're in the Terre Haute area, if you know any friends or family in that particular location in Indiana, make sure to give them a call or text. Make sure they're weather aware. That storm is moving toward that area. And that is currently live, by the way. That is a live thunderstorm that is currently ongoing. That is not pre-recorded, and no, that's not in the future. That's right now. So just keep that in mind. All right. Let's go back to this. All right, thank you, Chim, for the $5 super chat. What's the main concern for Central Kentucky Tuesday? And when are the storms supposed to hit? Main concern will be damaging winds and perhaps a couple of tornadoes. Main timing will be after 6 o'clock in the evening. You could see storms before that, but those will likely not be severe. The main concern for severe weather will try to hold off until probably the evening hours. Thank you, Mac, for the $2 super chat. What is the likelihood of twisters in Effingham, Illinois? It's overall a pretty low. It's a low risk. It's not zero, but it's low to medium right now in Effingham. Anywhere south of Bloomington, I would say it's a low to medium risk. And what I mean by that is essentially what the Storm Prediction Center outlined, which is a 5% tornado risk. That's why I would consider low to medium. So pretty much I would say low, medium. That's where we're at. The green area that you see here that goes all the way through Texas would indicate more of a very low risk of tornadoes. So just for reference. It's much more isolated risk in nature. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if we get some sort of 10% tornado risk added in the next outlook, perhaps over up in here somewhere like northeast Oklahoma or southwest Missouri. I would say it's still like a 40 to 50% chance that even happens. I'm kind of on the edge about that one right now with the latest model guidance in terms of the low-level jet's pretty impressive, but I still think we're gonna have some issues with the structures of these storms. And yeah, tornado parameter values not really jumping out to me at all. Almost all these storms will probably be rotating to some extent tomorrow. It's just gonna be a matter of if they actually produce. The low levels are going to be ripping in terms of the low-level jet. I mean, we're talking about a low-level jet around 40, 50, 60 knots, which the low-level jet, by the way, is at the 700 millibar level, so it's a few thousand feet off the ground. It's near the cloud base, basically, and that's where we have a little bit more of those strong winds, and that could help to rotate supercells. But it's going to be more of a matter of if we actually get tornado, like a large quantity of tornadoes tomorrow. I don't think we're going to have like a large-scale tornado outbreak, but we could get some sort of like small-scale tornado outbreak, which means perhaps like 6 tornadoes within a 12-hour period in a small region. But I don't think we're gonna have anything super large-scale tomorrow with that in terms of a tornado outbreak. All right. Thank you, Electro, for the $10 super chat. Central Illinois, and specifically tonight and tomorrow. Anywhere in central Illinois, I'm not sure where exactly that is in central Illinois, but basically if you are anywhere, oh, I see it, never mind. If you're basically in the Springfield area, between Springfield and St. Louis, the main concern will be tomorrow afternoon and evening. We will have a potential for a couple of discrete supercells to fire up. The main concern, if these end up happening, will be large hail. Damaging winds is still a concern, and maybe an isolated tornado. And that'll be primarily for tomorrow, late afternoon into the early evening. I don't expect really anything tonight, though. It's maybe an isolated ordinary thunderstorm tonight and tomorrow morning, but nothing significant tonight is expected. I am so behind. Thank you, Coffee, for the $5 super chat. Texas-Oklahoma border. Mostly going to get hail tomorrow. You are spot on. Yep. Main concern is large hail. So protect your vehicle. Hatch down trampolines just in case one of those storms produces a strong downdraft from one of those thunderstorms. Anything bad for Chicago tomorrow? South of Chicago. South of Chicago, an hour south. I don't know how far an hour south is of Chicago, but really anywhere up in here in Chicago. Main concern will be isolated maybe some isolated like small hail or gusty winds, but no really significant severe weather event is expected up there. I would not be concerned if you're in Chicago, though. Just ordinary showers and thunderstorms is really all about you'll see. You're not going to really see any large hail or damaging winds for the most part. Springfield, Missouri. Yeah, Springfield, Missouri, main concern will probably be damaging winds. I think for the majority of these storms that develop over in central Oklahoma, southeast Kansas, and north Texas, the majority of these storms that develop initially will be primarily producing large hail, and very large hail is also possible. We could see hail as large as baseball-sized hail, but one thing that we'll have to watch for is the evolution of these storms during the middle to late part of the evening. So notice by around 7 to 8 o'clock, these storms are moving more to the east. There we go. Moving more to the east, and they become a little bit more linear or semi-discrete, and that will allow more for a damaging wind risk. So if you are in Springfield, Jefferson City, basically anywhere in central or southern Missouri, the main concern would be damaging winds. Still a tornado risk if these go a little bit more QLCS, perhaps an embedded tornado or two in the linear line of storms. That could also increase that tornado risk a little bit. But with that being said, I'm most concerned about damaging winds in Missouri. They use Z Smith for the 499. Breckenridge County in Kentucky. I don't even know where that is. Friendly reminder, if you are asking questions, please try to give me like a side of the state or like a region of the state. It makes it way easier, and it, again, will help me being able to answer a lot more questions. Because again, it's 1 of me, 6,000 of you. It's a lot. All right, for this area in particular, the main concern, this is what we're looking at for the severe weather outlook on Tuesday. You're really on the edge there of the enhanced risk, but I would say overall the main concern will be damaging winds. Maybe a brief tornado somewhere in here, but that's really about it. I think the main concern will be damaging winds. Tomorrow, though, I'm not expecting really any crazy severe weather. Maybe an isolated storm with hail or damaging winds just to your west, perhaps even near you. Maybe a brief tornado again. That's really the threat both days, though. The concern for Tuesday will be focused during like the beginning of the evening hours, so right around 6 to 7 o'clock. There will be some storms before that, but those really will not be that severe. And notice the HR model really doesn't put any storms over here tomorrow evening, but I wouldn't be surprised if we got some sort of maybe isolated rogue supercell that tried to develop here, or perhaps produces a isolated tornado risk. Thank you, Gee, for the $9.99. I appreciate that. No message, but I do appreciate your generosity, Gee. Thank you very much. Thank you, Saucin, for the $4.99. The northern panhandle of Wheeling, West Virginia, in trouble with the moderate risk. There's no moderate risk of severe weather, one. And then two, I am not expecting anything too crazy in West Virginia when it comes to severe weather. You might get some damaging winds, perhaps a brief tornado. The main focus obviously will be in this enhanced risk, but even up in here, I mean, you might get some damaging winds. That'd be pretty much about it, though. I'm still really on Tuesday most concerned about damaging winds. Perhaps a few tornadoes, but main concern will be damaging winds for sure. But no moderate risk. I would be really shocked if we got a moderate risk on Tuesday. Unless the environment changed a lot in the next 24 hours, I would say there's not going to be a moderate risk. There's an enhanced risk. There's also a slight risk and a marginal risk. You might be confusing them a little bit. I don't know. But even tomorrow, I've had people asking me a ton recently, like, do you think there's going to be a moderate risk of severe weather tomorrow? I highly doubt it, just for the record. But yeah, I highly doubt it. There's not really a, I mean, maybe for hail, but even then, I think that's a stretch. I'm not really confident about, I personally, I wouldn't have confidence to go to a moderate risk anywhere tomorrow in the United States. I think overall, I think the level of the risk right now is fair for where it's at right now for tomorrow. And this is Tuesday, by the way. I'm referencing tomorrow's risk, which is a little bit different. That's this. I'm still on the wrong screen. There we go. Thank you, Stephanie, for the $5 super chat. Anything for West Central North Carolina? North Central North Carolina. Maybe Tuesday. Maybe isolated damaging winds. I wouldn't really expect anything tomorrow. So if you're in that marginal risk, you might see something. Oh, Charlotte. Okay, I see that in parentheses now. Charlotte, maybe some isolated gusty winds or small hail late Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. That'd be about it. I'm not expecting anything significant. Sorry, flipping back and forth a lot right now. All right, I'm almost fully caught up, and then I'll get back to the actual chat. Sorry, I'm really behind. Thank you, Madison, for the $4.99. What do you think about Frankfort, Kentucky? Frankfort, Kentucky. Frankfort, Kentucky. I don't know. I don't even know. That's near Lexington. So anywhere near Lexington for no particular day. So basically tomorrow, again, isolated damaging winds or hail are possible. I am not really expecting much of a tornado risk this far to the east, maybe a brief tornado. Going into Tuesday, though, I do think there's going to be a bit more of an elevated risk for damaging winds. In addition to that, there will be a chance for perhaps an isolated tornado. But I think the main concern for Tuesday will be damaging winds. And that goes for anywhere in Kentucky. And anywhere really in the Ohio Valley or Southeast. Southeast might be a bit more of a hail-driven threat, but we'll see. I think it'll probably be more damaging winds, but there might be some hail, perhaps like in the lower Mississippi Valley with those initial supercells during the afternoon that try to develop. Thank you, Monster, for the $199. Thank you for the great coverage. And to the mods, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Colty, for the $4.99. Del City, Oklahoma tomorrow. This is the last super chat, I think, for now. And also thank you, Seth, for the 99 cents. And then I'll get to the actual chat. Again, I did not expect this many viewers tonight, so I do apologize for... Well, I hopefully have answered most questions, but obviously there's probably still a lot. Anywhere in the Oklahoma City metro, storms are going to fire up around 4 to 6 o'clock tomorrow evening. The main concern will be large hail. And if any of these storms intensify really quickly, we could even see some strong downburst winds. This is 5 o'clock, and then this is 6 o'clock. Notice how those storms really blow up around 6. Once it pops up here, there you go. So right around 6 o'clock, they really blow up. So again, right around 4 to 6 o'clock, that's when they're really going to blow up here across central parts of Oklahoma. And large hail, again, being the main concern. Thank you, Alex, as well, for the $1 super chat. All right, I'm back to the actual chat. I've caught up on all these super chats, I think, hopefully. If I missed yours, I really do apologize. There are so many of them. I think we had like 40 in the last like 30 minutes. Do you storm chase? I don't usually storm chase. I've storm chased hurricanes before, but it's not really the same thing as a severe weather chase, for example. Now, I do plan on storm chasing at some point. Maybe I'll go do a ride along with like Connor Croft or something in the future. We'll see. You never know. I don't think we're going to have strong tornadoes on Tuesday. I do think that risk is on the lower side of things. So... overall, not super concerned about the strong tornado risk for Tuesday. Tornado expected in Greenfield tonight. I'm not expecting really any tornadoes tonight. This is the only storm that we have on live radar right now that is producing anything near severe levels. It's the one that's going towards Terre Haute, and even this discrete rogue supercell that's been ongoing. It's moving east-southeast, it's producing lightning, producing some hail, but it has weakened considerably over the last couple of hours. I'm not expecting much severe weather, though, tonight. A few of these storms that are trying to really, intensify in, like, central parts of Illinois are, trying to produce some small hail or gusty winds, but, again, I'm not super concerned about a severe weather threat tonight. Tomorrow and Tuesday are really the main 2 days to watch. Those are the main 2 days that you should be prepared for. And as I mentioned before, make sure that you're protecting your vehicle. If you're anywhere in either of these enhanced risks or slight risks or marginal risks, you want to make sure that you are protecting your vehicle. Protect outdoor plants that could get hit by hail and get damaged. Make sure you're protecting your car, as I just said 2 seconds ago. Hatch down trampolines, and I'm not joking, flying trampolines are definitely a possibility. Make sure to recharge phones, laptops, any source of light. Make sure that you have batteries in your flashlight. Have your weather radios good to go. Have them on hand. Do all those sort of precautions because it will be an active day tomorrow. And even though not everybody will see severe weather, those that do, there could be some significant storms out there that produce large hail, damaging winds, perhaps even a couple of tornadoes. Or a few tornadoes, I should say. Thank you, Gator, for the $10 super chat. What about Fort Smith, Arkansas? Mostly concerned about hail. I would agree with that, and thank you, by the way, for your generous $10 super chat. But yeah, I think the main concern there will be large hail. I don't expect a whole lot of a tornado risk there. I think it'll be on the low side of things, and then perhaps some damaging winds. That's really the main concern, though. Your timing will be around probably about 8 to about 11. That's really the prime time there for you. This is about 9 o'clock. Notice how the storms are just west there of Fort Smith. And again, this is an approximate estimate here, but that's pretty much what I'd be on board for at this point. Sometime between 8 and 11 for your best shot at storms. Thank you, Chase, for the $3 super chat, by the way. Thank you, TJ, or T and J for the $5 super chat. I don't know what that first word means, but I will look up wherever that is. Eufaula, Oklahoma. This is on the eastern side of the state, so pretty much similar to Fort Smith. The main concern will be large hail, but once this becomes a bit more linear, which will probably be a bit more linear by the time it gets to you, this will turn into a bit more of a damaging wind concern with perhaps a couple of embedded tornadoes in that line of storms, and that'll primarily happen in that particular area between probably about 6 to 10 o'clock. That'll be your ETA for severe storms tomorrow evening. Thank you, Colty, for the $4.99. Any tornadoes for the Oklahoma City area? I am not really expecting any tornadoes. I mean, particularly in Oklahoma City, I think that tornado risk is really low. Further east you go, it increases more. Like in this area here where those storms initially develop, I do think it's going to be a little bit lower of a risk, but once they get a little bit further east of Oklahoma City, so like this area, that threat will increase a little bit more. I think it's a low risk for Oklahoma City. I think it increases much more, though, further east, and then it will probably start to decrease more after about 11 or 12 o'clock. But I think the prime time for tornadoes tomorrow out of this batch of storms will be between about 6 to like 11 or 12 at the latest. So it's about a 5-hour time frame or so for tornadoes. But I still think the main concern, again, being damaging winds and large hail. A few tornadoes are possible, but again, it's probably not going to be some sort of large-scale tornado outbreak. I would say overall, this will probably not be as bad when it comes to tornadoes comparatively to what we saw a couple of weeks ago with the tornado outbreak that we had that stretched from Texas, Arkansas, and Oklahoma into Ohio. Not the same sort of setup, a little bit different. With that being said, hopefully I don't jinx it, because I don't think these are going to be, I mean, these are not identical environments. I think this one's a little bit less on the side of tornadic activity. I think this will be a little bit more favored toward damaging winds and hail. Yeah, that's my forecast. We'll see what the Storm Prediction Center says tomorrow. That's what I think will happen. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I feel like I'm pretty confident on that. This is a little bit, not nearly as good of a setup as what we had a couple weeks ago. Knock on wood, that is right. No problem, Wendy. Sorry, I gotta fill up my water real quick. Izzy just said in chat, I bet Max's geography has become very strong over time with doing these live streams. I actually would agree with that. I've gotten pretty used to certain areas in the United States. I've definitely learned Illinois a lot more, though, recently. Like, a lot more. I'd say Illinois is really the one area that I've really started to master more when it comes to particular locations across the state. Thank you, Alexander, for the $1.99. Northwest Arkansas, Benton County. Anywhere in Northwest Arkansas, the main concern will be damaging winds. The hail threat is probably going to be mostly maximized off to your west. This is the hail threat. So it'll be primarily maximized back over to your west. So that'll include areas like northeast Oklahoma, central Oklahoma, north Texas, and back into southwest parts of Missouri. Thank you to Pencils for the $10 donation. I appreciate that. Thank you. No message, but I do appreciate that. Thank you live for the $5 super chat. Will Wilmington, Ohio be awful Monday, Tuesday? Local news is not on the same page for our risk. Wilmington, Ohio. Wilmington, Ohio, overall, the main concern, again, being damaging winds. This area in particular, I mentioned this earlier, but I do think that there will at least be a more elevated tornado risk in south and really southern parts of Ohio. And much of Kentucky. This area in particular where the enhanced risk is, I do think there will be a few tornadoes. As of now, I am not for, I don't expect strong tornadoes here unless something changes, like with the setup. I do think there will at least be a chance, though, for a few tornadoes embedded in a more linear line of storms during the evening hours across these areas. So that's what I would expect at this point. Thank you again for your $5 super chat. Thank you, Mr. Pilgrim, for the $2 super chat. Evansville, Indiana. Evansville, it's down here to the south. Evansville, the main concern for Monday will be during the late afternoon into the evening. It's a little bit more of a conditional risk, a little bit more isolated. You may end up seeing some large hail and damaging winds if you end up getting a discrete cell, maybe a brief tornado. But going into Tuesday, a little bit different of a setup. Storms will fire up. Really, all morning long, there will be storms, or at least some showers and thunderstorms in the vicinity. Those mostly will not be severe. Once we go into the afternoon, more storms will try to fire up, and these will be the ones that we'll have to watch for the potential for some isolated large hail and perhaps some isolated damaging winds, maybe a brief tornado. Friendly reminder, by the way, if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below. It's the red button down below. We'll be live most likely both Monday and Tuesday with severe weather coverage, so make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you're enjoying the stream as well, finding it informative, make sure to like the stream. And also, I'm going to put the link in our chat to our Twitter page, our Facebook page, all those places. Make sure to click the link. Go follow us on other platforms. Again, we'll be posting updates on those as well for some severe weather updates over the next 48 hours. Highly recommend following us on Twitter. Third time he's missed mine. Again, I'm going to be honest with you guys. We have so many questions coming in. There's 5,000 of you. There's one of me. I'm trying to answer as many as possible. So. Thank you, Space, for the $5 super chat as well. Appreciate that. Thank you. I don't remember what he said about Arkansas. The main concern in Arkansas will primarily be damaging winds. Large hail is possible on the western side of the state. That will be a bit more of a maximized threat there. There's that severe weather risk for tomorrow. Not really going to go through the timing again, but this area in particular, a bit more of an elevated hail risk in northwest Arkansas. Near Fort Smith and Fayetteville, and then further over here to the east and as well as further south, more of a damaging wind risk here, and that'll be about it. I don't expect much of a tornado risk in Arkansas tomorrow, maybe an isolated tornado in northwest Arkansas. Brandon with the $2.99 says possible Michigan snowstorm in the system. Yes, there is actually. I talked about this a lot more in my YouTube forecast from like 4 hours ago. Go to the very end of it. There's timestamps in the description. I actually did a detailed breakdown on the Midwest and as well as the Northeast for that particular potential for a snowstorm in both the Midwest and as well as the Northeast as we go into Wednesday. So check that out. If you have more questions on that, feel free to let me know. But that goes into more depth than... I mean, that's really the most in-depth I've gone into on the winter storm potential for both Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from the Midwest back into the Northeast. All right. Anything for Oklahoma City? Oklahoma City, the main concern there will be large hail with those initial supercells, maybe an isolated tornado, and perhaps some downburst damaging winds. The main concern is large hail. That time frame for anywhere near Oklahoma City will be between about 4 to 7 p.m. or so, give or take a couple hours on both sides of that spectrum, though. Some things could potentially change on that. I don't know how to say your name, but thank you, I'm gonna try my best. Jenna V, maybe, with the $4.99 super chat. Mason, Ohio was in a tornado watch for the night. For a night. Sorry, I was about to say we're not under we don't have any tornado watches. For a night, do you think they will throw one out just in case? I don't know where Mason, Ohio is. Let me look. I mean, realistically, it depends on where you are in Ohio, but I mean, you do have a chance for a tornado watch on Tuesday if those conditions are warranted. Yeah, I mean, you're definitely in the playing field for that. That's back down in southwest parts of Ohio. Anywhere in southwest Ohio, you could be under a tornado watch Tuesday evening if that threat really materializes into a more tornado risk. Again, we will see if that happens. But again, I can't really predict a tornado watch being issued. It's not something you really predict. In the long term, like in 2 days out or 3 days out, it's more something that you can predict within a couple hours, because the Storm Prediction Center usually gives you some sort of leeway or some sort of notice that there will probably be a watch, or might be a watch, or there might not be a watch in a certain area. So not really something I can personally predict, but I will say that that is definitely a possibility Tuesday afternoon and evening if that tornado risk tries to materialize. Thank you, Silver, for the very generous $20 super chat. Let's get some hearts in the chat for Silver with the generous $20 super chat. Can you give me a tornado severe weather threat for Columbia, Missouri, in particular on the northern side of... All right, I don't know what those counties are, but let me figure out where... So Columbia on the northern side of these counties in this area. Main concern here will be large hail out during the afternoon hours tomorrow. So here's the timeline on the future radar. It's about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. We'll probably get an isolated discrete cell or two that'll try to fire off near this warm frontal boundary where there's going to be a lot of buoyancy as well during the mid to late afternoon hours tomorrow. This is going to be near the Columbia area, just north of Interstate 70, back into western Illinois, north of St. Louis. The main concern with these storms will be large hail, perhaps some isolated damaging winds. This is a bit more of a conditional risk, though. It may or may not happen, but if it does happen, large hail and perhaps an isolated tornado as well will be possible. So all modes of severe weather basically possible if we get these discrete supercells. We'll be watching for more rounds of storms during the evening hours, and these ones will be mostly damaging winds and some spotty hail, maybe a brief tornado. Thank you again for your very generous $20 super chat. Also, thank you, Caitlin, for becoming a moderate velocity member. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Turtle, for the £5 donation in pounds or euros. They keep doing what you're doing. Thank you. I appreciate that, Turtle. Thank you. Thank you, Luke, for the $4.99. Hope you had a great Easter. It was a great Easter. I hope everybody else actually had a great Easter as well. I hope everybody had a great Easter and celebrated the holiday. Maybe found some candy. Maybe the Easter Bunny came. Thank you for the $4.99 again. And Bowling Green, Kentucky for the storms on Tuesday. Bowling Green, the main concern would be damaging winds. Again, anywhere in Kentucky, that's the main concern. I'd be mostly focused, though, on the evening threat. So right around 5 to 10 o'clock or so for Bowling Green. I mean, really anywhere there from Louisville to Bowling Green. That's your main time frame. Damaging winds being the main concern. You also could see some isolated large hail, maybe an isolated tornado as well. For those wondering about Chicago, I know it's a pretty frequently brought up question. I'm not concerned about severe weather tonight. I'm not concerned about severe weather tomorrow. I'm not concerned about severe weather on Tuesday. I'm also not concerned about severe weather at all this week. So if you're in Chicago, you're not probably going to see any severe weather. Maybe some isolated strong storms tomorrow, but that would be about it. More concerningly, you actually could see a few inches of snow going into Wednesday. And if you want to know more details about that winter storm, you can check out the video from earlier today, because I went more in depth on that. Thank you, Kelly, for the $5 super chat. I'm located in New Point, Indiana. What am I expecting? Seeing we are in a bad spot, what is your opinion? New Point, Indiana. That is in southeastern parts of Indiana. I would say the main concern there will be some isolated damaging winds. I do think the problem with tomorrow's setup for this particular side of the severe weather event is going to be that we're going to have a lot of showers and thunderstorms throughout the daytime hours, and that'll likely stabilize the atmosphere more, and that'll probably lead to a lower threat of severe weather overall. But I wouldn't be surprised with some isolated damaging winds, perhaps some isolated large hail, maybe a brief tornado, but I think that threat stays really low for those areas. I think the greater concern will actually be on Tuesday, where you'll probably get a bit more of an elevated risk there for damaging winds and perhaps even a few tornadoes. But in southern Indiana in particular, that tornado risk will, it'll be still low overall, even on Tuesday. Low, medium, sort of in that range. Main concern for St. Louis will be large to very large hail. I've had that question asked a lot. That's the main concern for tomorrow, in my opinion, and damaging winds. That large to very large hail threat, or at least the very large hail threat, will really only happen if we get those discrete supercells near the warm front tomorrow afternoon. If that doesn't happen, I would lean towards the side of mainly being damaging winds with maybe an isolated tornado. Thank you, man, for the 999. Last time Central Indiana got severe weather, it dodged Indianapolis, got the suburbs with rain, but with little to no wind nor lightning in the city. Is there a reason for this, or just unlucky? Pretty much just unlucky, I would say. I mean, I would consider it lucky. I don't really think people want to see severe weather. With that being said, I would just say more than anything, it's just unlucky. Sometimes suburbs there are like downtown, like cities and stuff, though. Sometimes they get dodged a lot. You can go back into like Dallas and Fort Worth, a few years ago back. I believe it was 2019, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember. It might have been more. Actually, it might have been more recent than that. There was a EF3 tornado that went through Fort Worth. Now, it didn't hit the city of Dallas by any means, but it was like in the Fort Worth area. And that was a really dangerous storm. I mean, we've seen severe weather hit cities before, but I'd say it's a little bit less frequent though in cities. But with that being said, there are less cities in the United States than towns, for example. Thank you, the one and only, for the $5 super chat. We had a tornado go through Rossville, Kansas. What's the look for the next 2 days? Don't know where Rossville is. Unless you're in very far south, unless you're in southeast Kansas, I'm not really expecting anything for severe weather. If you're near like Kansas City, maybe a slightly more elevated hail risk if we end up getting a couple storms fired up during the afternoon. And Rossville is nowhere near the severe weather risk, so overall, I'm not expecting much for you. Maybe some ordinary thunderstorms, but that'd be about it. Tulsa, the main concern for Tulsa will be large hail. This is, again, what it looks like tomorrow. Large hail damaging winds, the main concerns. Again, the initial supercells that develop, the main concern will be large to very large hail. There will still be a chance for damaging winds, especially as these storms organize more into a line of storms and eventually move more to the east. Damaging winds will dominate more as a threat during the late evening into the overnight hours Tuesday. Or, sorry, Monday, not Tuesday. Monday night into the overnight hours Monday night and eventually into Tuesday morning as they continue to move more to the east. And here's more in motion, by the way, on that future radar. I love your videos. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed them. We changed the style of the intro a little bit recently on our videos. I'm assuming a lot of you guys noticed that. This afternoon's video is back to the normal intro, but for more significant severe weather events and stuff, I'll probably hold on to that intro. Kind of just dive right into it. Like as I did in my videos on Saturday, this morning as well, and back, I believe, on Friday. We'll probably jump right into whatever we're talking about more on those sort of videos. We'll do intros, though, if it's needed. Like our normal OG intro, basically. It'll be here and there. Depending on the event, basically. Thank you, Robert, for the $2 super chat. What do you think about Florence, Alabama for Tuesday? Florence, Alabama, I'm not really anticipating anything too crazy. Isolated damaging winds being the main concern, perhaps some isolated large hail, but that is probably about it. There is a slight risk. With that being said, I would still expect the main concern being damaging winds. You'll see here, lots of showers and storms during the late afternoon and evening hours. This is right around 5 o'clock. I think the main concern with these will be damaging winds. Maybe a slightly more elevated hail risk a little bit further west. Have a good night, Barbara. Thank you, Sandy, for the $9.99. Kudos for your endless patience. Yes, appreciate that. There's been a lot of questions. I wouldn't be surprised if a 10% tornado risk got added for Tuesday. I wouldn't be surprised if we had a hatched area either, but I don't think we will have a hatched area on Tuesday. I think the chances of that are a little bit on the lower side of things. So a 10% hatched area, I would say it's a lower chance overall. But I do think it's definitely in play that we do have a 10% tornado risk. I think it's very possible, but I don't think we're going to have hatched area. And what a hatched area is, by the way, for those that don't know, is strong tornadoes being a possibility, or at least more of an elevated chance. I don't think we're going to have that on Tuesday, but again, knock on wood. Hopefully that doesn't happen. I don't think it will, though. But I wouldn't be surprised by a 10% tornado risk. Just hatched, probably not. How do you super chat? It's the money symbol at the bottom. I highly recommend, though, if you ever do want to support the channel, going through the donation link in the description. Or by Venmo. Those are the best ways to support the channel. Why is Ohio so active this year? Great question. It's actually been surprisingly active. A lot of it does have to do with the transition, though, that we're about to go through with El Nino to La Nina. And during the spring, we've actually had a very active severe weather pattern there. But I wouldn't say this is like out of the ordinary. I think one of the things that we had out of the ordinary for sure was the severe weather back in February across the Midwest, including Wisconsin, where we had our first ever tornado in February in Wisconsin. That was crazy. Now, Ohio, I think more than anything, though, is more because of the fact that we're, in an El Nino weather pattern, and the temperatures overall across the United States are way warmer than usual. Ocean waters, by the way, are already in the low 80s in some spots in like the Gulf of Mexico and stuff. We could end up having hurricanes as early as May. I mean, it's very possible with the trend that we're going right now. The water temperatures are just abnormally warm, so I think a lot of that has to do with it as well. I mean, overall, the growing season across like the southern plains and stuff, it's about 20 days ahead of schedule. So just for reference, we are basically seeing stuff that we would see 20 days from now, so like the middle or end of April. This is more typical for that time frame comparatively to what we're having right now. So by the way, there is a strong storm now going through Terre Haute. The severe storm no longer a severe thunderstorm warning on this storm. This storm has been weakening very, very quickly. If you're in Terre Haute, which I just had somebody ask in chat about it, isolated small hail or gusty winds are possible. Thank you, Robert, for the $4.99 as well. I appreciate that. Thank you, Robert. All right. Also, friendly reminders, again, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below. It's the red button down below, subscribe. Again, we will be probably going live both Monday and Tuesday for severe weather coverage. Other reminders unrelated to the channel, make sure that you do have your phones, batteries, all that sort of stuff on hand. Make sure you have flashlights on hand just in case you end up losing power tomorrow for whatever reason, if there's severe weather that knocks out power. Have a weather radio ready. If you have one, make sure it's ready to go. Obviously, you really can't get a weather radio unless you go into a store tomorrow, but I do recommend that you have your weather radio on hand to receive warnings and alerts. Charge up devices, all that sort of stuff tonight, so those are ready to go tomorrow in case you do again lose power. Every source of light that you can get is basically going to help you out essentially. So make sure all that stuff is ready. Protect vehicles, hatch down trampolines, protect plants outside, all that sort of stuff, because again, large hail, damaging winds, and even a few tornadoes will be possible tomorrow. Thank you, Rib, for the $9.99. What about Southern Illinois area, please? Southern Illinois, the main concern will be damaging winds. This is a bit more of the timing for tomorrow. So here's that timing guide. Most of the storms will not happen in southern Illinois until at least about 6 or 7 o'clock. There will be probably at least a couple of discrete cells out there near that warm frontal boundary. Again, a bit more of a conditional risk. These storms will produce the potential for some large hail damaging winds and an isolated tornado risk. What I would be watching for more, though, is during the late evening into the overnight hours. The main concern then will be damaging winds, and you'll see that really evolve here by 11 to 12 o'clock. More of these clusters of storms, those will produce more of a damaging wind risk, and I think that's really going to be the main concern in southern Illinois. But near that warm frontal boundary, near like Springfield, near St. Louis, there definitely could be an elevated risk there for severe weather. That should be a bit further up to the north, though, of where you are. What do you think will be more active for tornadoes, April or May? I would actually lean towards April, not May, just because we're a little bit ahead of schedule on these severe weather events. I would honestly actually put April in the running for probably being one of the more active months. Yeah, I would say April, but we'll see. I mean, we'll see. Usually May is, but I'm kind of leaning towards April. Now, I don't think this will again be a large-scale tornado outbreak, but there will probably at least be a few tornadoes, most likely both tomorrow and Tuesday. Where could the where in the orange could there be a 10% tornado risk? Again, I'm not the Storm Prediction Center, so I again do not know for sure, but my prediction would be if we do get one, it'll probably be in this area here. I would kind of exclude these areas, but I would say that area in particular. That's where I think the greatest risk is. Now, with that being said, we might not even get a 10%. I'm just saying it's a possibility. It's definitely not for certain. But I do think there will definitely be a more elevated tornado risk in here, whether that is a 5% or a 10% risk. I think that'll be where the greatest tornado risk does lie. What weather app am I using? This is Radar Omega. You can download it with the link near the bottom of the description. I will also post a link in chat for those that want to download it. We are not sponsored by Radar Omega tonight, but those are the download links. How's your day going? It's going pretty good. It's Easter. Easter Sunday. Tomorrow and Tuesday, though, will be very busy, and then I have an exam on Wednesday, which means I am going to have a very small turnaround time to study for that. Good times. Are those storm chasers showing up on the map? There's a couple of storm chasers on here, but most of these are just live cyclone ports. Like, this is a live cam in Tennessee right now. Pretty nice view. Nothing crazy, though. This is a mountain back over in California. This is pretty cool. Still got snow on the ground there on that mountain. Back over in Northern California. Pretty close to sunset, though. Nice view. But, yeah. These are all cyclone ports for the most part. I think you got like a couple of storm chasers in here mixed in, but that's about it. Tomorrow, there will probably at least be 3 or 4 storm chasers live on Radar Omega. Don't chase if you don't know what you're doing. I don't disagree. Severe weather risk for Central Texas on Monday. It's overall a low risk. It's conditional on the cap being overcome. If that is overcome on Monday, I would expect the main concern being some large hail and perhaps some isolated damaging winds. So this would be the area to watch for here. But I don't think a tornado risk will really materialize south of Interstate 20. Maybe something brief, but I think the tornado risk is pretty low. Main time frame would be between about 7 to 11 o'clock. South of Interstate 20. I do not smell a moderate risk by any means for Monday. I still don't think we're gonna have a moderate risk. I know a lot of people have been thinking that, but I would be a little surprised if we had a moderate risk of severe weather for Monday. I just don't think it's going to be a very favorable, I don't think it's that favorable, and I don't think there's enough confidence there for that. Thank you, Aaron. I do still think Tuesday might be a bit of a bigger day for tornadoes, but even with that being said, if we have a lot of convection during the day, time hours before that tornado risk, that might be limited. So it's my major, meteorology. I am a year away from officially being a meteorologist, believe it or not. Only a year. Your super chat. Oh, let me look. I don't know how long ago it was. Oh, actually, I missed a bunch of them. Thank you, Sam, for the 199. Urbana, Illinois. I will look it up real quick. Urbana is probably going to just see maybe isolated large hail or damaging winds. You're near that warm frontal boundary, so if we get one of those isolated discrete cells near that area, you might have a slightly more elevated risk of severe weather, but I think the overall concern is going to be a little bit more on the low side comparatively to areas down here to the south. To study meteors. Yes, that's what meteorology is. You study meteors. Believe it or not, it's a fun degree. You study about meteors. I don't know a name of a meteor, so I can't even think of any off the top of my head. And maybe we study some asteroids. Study the sun. It's fun. I've been asked that a lot, by the way. That's not like the first time somebody's brought that up. Like, people actually think meteorology is studying meteors. They're like, oh, you're studying some astronomy stuff. Sure. If you want to think of it that way, sure. No problem, Sam. I know it's a joke, but some people do not joke about that. Like, some people really think we are actually studying meteors. Like, I'm not kidding. It's an actual, it's not made up. I'm your meteorologist. Well, are you gonna break down some meteors? Some comets? Yeah, Halley's Comet? Sure. Terre Haute is just dealing with a strong storm. It's not severe. Small hail, gusty winds, some lightning being possible. That is an ongoing storm, by the way. That's not what we're talking about for tomorrow or Tuesday. It's not really that concerning. It's just a strong storm. I think the enhanced risk Monday will move more north. Yeah, I would not be surprised with a small extension up into here, perhaps, for that enhanced risk. So back over into areas near central Illinois. I'm not ruling that out. Max, on TV you're blurry, but on the phone you're not. Might have to refresh. Might just be a bug or something. Thank you, John, for the $9.99. How are we looking for Lancaster, Ohio? Thank you for your generous $9.99. I appreciate that. Lancaster in particular, the main concern tomorrow is just isolated severe weather. I'm not expecting much, maybe isolated large hail or damaging winds. Going into Tuesday, though, I would expect a little bit higher of a severe weather risk. Damaging winds, the main concern with maybe an isolated tornado. That tornado risk will be mainly maximized down to your south. Thank you, Nicole, as well, for the $1 super chat. I think the tornado risk will be upgraded to a 10% hatched? I do not. Unless confidence grows on one of these areas of severe weather, perhaps like up in here somewhere, being a little bit more elevated on that tornado risk. I mean, this area in particular is really the only area that I would personally consider a 10% hatched area at this point. Maybe a 10% down here, but I don't think it would go hatched. So, but even then, I think it's just, I don't know if there's enough confidence there for something like that. Yeah, Chicago's fine. I'm not expecting much in Chicago. Thank you, Denver, for the $1.99. How's it looking in Lincoln County, Kentucky for Tuesday? I don't really know where that is, but anywhere in Kentucky is mainly a damaging wind risk, and the time frame will be primarily from approximately 3 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon up until about 10 to 11 o'clock. That goes from west to east for that area of storms that'll be producing damaging winds and perhaps a few tornadoes. What changed for the lower tornado risk? Honestly, the tornado risk that they had for the 10% tornado risk, I thought was weird to begin with for tomorrow. It was in a weird area. It was in here. I don't remember if it went, it might have gone into Northwest Oklahoma, or Northeast Oklahoma, I mean. But I just thought it was in a weird area. I didn't see much meaning behind it. I mean, the tornado parameter values kind of peaked in this area for the record, but I still didn't see much of a increased or elevated tornado risk there personally. With that being said, I wouldn't be surprised if one got added, perhaps maybe a small 10% down here, or perhaps maybe one up here. But I still don't think, I still think it's a little bit lower of a chance of that happening than it being higher, at 50%. Thank you, Tyler, for the $5 super chat. What about, I don't know where that is, but I will look it up. Somewhere in Indiana. Anywhere in southern parts of Indiana, the main concern tomorrow, damaging winds and isolated large hail, perhaps an isolated tornado. I do think naturally, though, unless we get discrete supercells going, if those happen, it's still a conditional risk, but if there are discrete supercells, you may end up getting a slightly more elevated hail and perhaps even a tornado risk, but for the most part, it should be primarily a large hail and damaging wind risk. And that'll be primarily after sunset. Thank you, Kevin, for the $5 super chat. Cedar Vale, Kansas. And no problem, I will look. I don't know where that is either. Tomorrow you will probably at least get a couple of storms in the area. Main concern would be large hail. Here's a little timing guide for Kansas. I haven't really looked at Kansas much here, but this would be what we're talking about for timing. This is 3 to 4 o'clock. Storms firing up around 5 to 6. Main concern will be large hail, some isolated damaging winds, and perhaps I don't think we'll have a tornado risk here really. Even though you're in the 2% tornado risk, I think it's a very low chance. I wouldn't really expect many tornadoes, but more than anything, I'd be mostly prepared for large hail. Thank you, Will, for the $4.99. I have some tallish trees in the front of my house where it meets a river. If Goes River trees my house, I don't understand your question. What does it look like Wednesday in Ohio? Ohio will be drying out by Wednesday, so it'll be nicer weather. But I don't really, I think there might be some words that are backwards in that sentence. If it goes river trees my house, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're saying. With that being said, Wednesday we'll have nicer weather, especially in Ohio. Be on the back side of that trough. It'll be nicer. It'll be a little bit colder, but it'll be nicer. Auto-corrected it to if. If I'm still lost. I don't know. If anybody knows how to clarify that, let me know in chat. I still don't know what it says. They're explaining how that. I know they're explaining that the house is set up where there's trees in the front of the house. I know that part. I don't get the question though. Liam, the main concern is damaging winds for Nashville on Tuesday, maybe an isolated tornado in Tennessee, but again, the risk is low for overall for tornadoes there. Risk is a little bit more elevated for damaging winds. It means his river is in front of the trees, then his house is behind. Again, I think I got that part. I just don't get the question. Another good thing, by the way, that you should definitely make sure you have in mind is a tornado action plan in place. And also have a severe weather action plan in place, meaning that you know where to go if there's a damaging windstorm or a hailstorm coming to you in your home or building. Mobile homes, again, are not sufficient when there's tornadoes and damaging winds, and if you're under one of those warnings, you do not want to be in a mobile home, so have alternate plans. But have a tornado action plan in place. Have that ready tonight so you know where you're going tomorrow if you are under a tornado warning, and if you have any sort of damaging wind risk as well. I read it 6 times. I'm lost. I'm very lost as well. No, I got you, Will. I mean, again, the main concern will be damaging winds on Tuesday. Those they may or may not knock over those trees. I don't know what those trees even look like, how tall they are or whatever, but I would, obviously, trees definitely could fall on Tuesday with damaging winds. Now, not everybody's going to see damaging winds, but if you do see damaging winds, it's like a scattered to numerous threat right now for Tuesday. If you do see damaging winds, they could be as high as 65 to 70 miles per hour. A very, very, very isolated storm could go higher than that, but I don't think we'll see too many storms go over that. Do you not read $2 super chats? I've sent 4. You sent 4? And I've missed all 4? Really? Grove City, Ohio. I do apologize. Sorry. I mean, again, I try to get to super chats. If I don't, I apologize. But we've had a ridiculous amount of super chats tonight, and we also have we have like 4,000 viewers right now. We've had well over 4,000 this entire stream, so I do apologize if I've not gotten to your questions. Hopefully I've gotten to all the super chats and whatnot, but if I have not, I do apologize. Back over near Columbus, though, anywhere in the Columbus area, the main concern Tuesday is damaging winds. The tornado risk will really be maximized down here to the south. It will not really be in that area, but you still could see an isolated tornado. Not ruling out some isolated quarter-sized hail, perhaps with a storm or two, but that'd be about it. I'm not expecting really any severe weather tomorrow. I think the main concern will be on Tuesday. Best chance for storms will be during the mid to late afternoon into the evening. Mercury, I have zero clue. I don't know what those. I know what Dom 3 is. I know what TIV2 is. I have no clue what that is. But I know Connor Croft will be storm chasing tomorrow. And for our severe weather coverage for tomorrow and Tuesday, we will have Connor Croft storm chasing with us. So again, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel down below. It's free to do. Hit the red button down below so you are subscribed to the channel for if and when we do go live for the severe weather event for both days. Currently planning on being live for both Monday and Tuesday. Not a guarantee, but it's fairly likely as long as we have some significant severe weather happening. Thank you, Mr. Civ, for the very generous $20 super chat. I appreciate that a lot. Make me geek out a lot on weather again. Love storm chase or love storm watching, but it don't look like we have anything. Looked like anything was going on last time I checked. I am horrible at reading for some reason right now. But it don't look like anything was going on last time I checked. Okay. And also, are my Cincinnatians... I didn't know that was a word. Looking good on the National Weather Service outlook for Tuesday. Main concern in the Cincinnati area, that is where really one of the areas that we're watching the most for right now on Tuesday will be Southwest Ohio. That includes Cincinnati. Main concern again is damaging winds for Tuesday. There could be a couple of tornadoes, perhaps even in that area. The greatest tornado risk will be between Cincinnati and Central Kentucky for Tuesday. At least that's what I'm thinking right now. Subject to change as always. All right, we'll answer a few more questions, and then as a friendly reminder, this live stream will be available for you to watch after the stream, and we also have a video that's much more condensed than this live stream that you can also watch. The video was uploaded about 4 hours ago. I will post a link to that video in chat for those that want to watch that as well. That has a lot more details on the winter storm and as well as the severe weather threat for both days. Timing guides for literally every part of the country is on that video, specifically for Monday. There's a little bit of timing for Tuesday. It doesn't go super in depth, but there is some of that on there as well. Highly recommend you watch that video if you have any other specific questions that I've yet to answer in this live stream. That goes very in depth, so make sure to go watch that video. The link is in the chat there. With that being said, again, we do plan on being live tomorrow, so make sure that you are currently subscribed to the channel. Click the bell icon as well down below so you're notified if and when we do go live. Again, I'll be answering a couple more questions here and then we'll probably call it. Thank you, Big Ant, for the $4.99. What is the average time span to get to shelter after a warning? I live in a mobile home with a shelter nearby. What do you mean by average time span to get into a shelter? You should really get to your safe place like immediately. If you're on like the eastern side of a tornado warning, like let's say 20 miles to the east of the storm where it is right now at that point, you have time technically, but you still want to be in your safe place as soon as humanly possible. Usually the lead time is less than 60 seconds, if you can even do that. I mean, it just depends on your situation. Most people can. If you're in a mobile home, for example, you might want to be watching the radar even a little bit more closely, even when storms are behind you to the west, so that you are weather aware. And if you see a storm that's rotating or something like that, or, you know, if there's a severe storm just to your west that could be maybe producing something down the road, might not be a bad idea to go to that shelter early rather than later. Enhanced risk expansion into DFW. I have my doubts about that. I do think it's a little bit more conditional. With that being said, I do think the enhanced risk could very well go down into here. I do think that's possible. I don't think DFW will go into an enhanced risk, but I do think an extension further down to the south is very possible. Thank you, Mr. Civ, again for another generous $10 super chat. Thanks, Max. I really appreciate the streams. I'll see you Monday and Tuesday. That's as long as we are live, which again, it's a pretty high chance that we will be live both days. But I do appreciate, again, your $10 super chat and also your $20 super chat. Tornado risk for Oklahoma. The tornado risk is higher the further east you go. Again, this will really be the main area to watch for tornadoes. Again, a few tornadoes being possible up that direction. I would say it's a bit more isolated though in here. Even though those initial discrete supercells have a bit more of an elevated chance for tornadoes, I think it'll be more maximized in the area that I just outlined. Still would not rule out though a couple of tornadoes in here. Just keep that in mind. But that's where I think the greatest risk will be across the board. No problem, Matthew. Tulsa will get severe storms tomorrow night. Most likely gonna see some damaging winds and large hail. If you do see severe weather, perhaps an isolated tornado. Alrighty. Well, I've answered a ton of questions in this live stream, and I really hope I've gotten to every question that I could possibly get to, because I've gotten to so many. We've probably answered at least couple hundred questions in this live stream. If you found the stream informative, make sure to like the stream, subscribe to the channel. Again, it's that red button down below. It's free to do. Subscribe. Again, if you subscribe to the channel, you'll at least have a way to watch this live stream tomorrow, or at least see it on your feed. So make sure to subscribe down below. It's the red button down below. Subscribe. Click the bell icon down below as well, so you're notified if and when we do go live tomorrow. A few other reminders. Again, I plan on being live tomorrow afternoon and evening for the severe weather threat. I will probably also be live on Tuesday, so it looks like 2 live streams over the next couple of days, as long as the weather is significant enough to warrant a live stream. Also, if you want to support the page above and beyond, you become a member for as little as $2.99 a month. I appreciate all of the new members tonight, and anybody that also subscribed to the channel. If you super chatted tonight, it really supports the page a lot, and I really do appreciate you guys a lot. The membership link will be in the chat. You can feel free to become a member. Again, it's as little as $2.99 a month. It helps upgrade our studio setup. We're adding more monitors and doing a ton of other overlay upgrades and stuff here over the next few weeks. So I would appreciate if you consider becoming a member. By no means do you have to, but that helps give you us, again, more funds to be able to upgrade a lot more stuff. Again, I do appreciate you guys all tuning in. Have a great, safe rest of your night. We will be live again, most likely tomorrow and as well as Tuesday. If you have more questions that I did not answer in today's live stream, I will link a video in chat to our video from literally a few hours ago that has all these details for you in a much more confined and condensed format. Has all sorts of details on timing across the United States. That video has been spammed in the chat 3 times. Feel free to click that, go watch it. It has more details on what you can expect for the severe weather threat tomorrow and Tuesday, in addition to a full detailed breakdown on the winter storm in the Midwest and the Northeast on Wednesday and Thursday. Have a great, safe rest of your night, guys. I appreciate you guys all tuning in, and we'll see you guys all again most likely tomorrow. If not, we'll definitely see you guys on Tuesday. Have a great night. We'll see you guys all again soon.